What's good, everybody? Welcome to the season debut, season 9 of Mystery Unsolved. That's right, I've done this for 8 seasons, and now it is on season 9. Crazy, right? Well, tonight's episode, I decided to shift course a little bit. The original plan was to do it on the Voynich manuscript, but upon reading what that was, it was rather boring, and I didn't want to sit through that. So the next episode became the first episode. So tonight, for season 9, to the season 9 debut, I Can't Talk, the mysterious death of Marilyn Monroe. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Marilyn Monroe didn't die under mysterious circumstances. Well, you can believe that all you want, but I'm here to tell you we wouldn't be doing an episode on it if that weren't the case. So, without further ado, the mysterious death of Marilyn Monroe. Now, I don't believe I need to tell you about Marilyn Monroe, about who she was, about her life, because chances are you probably already know. She was a famous actress, a blonde starlet, if you will, a blonde bombshell back in the day, an actress from the 40s, 50s, and 60s until her death in 1962. She was just 36 years old. She died on August 4th, 1962 to be exact, of an apparent overdose of barbiturates at her Los Angeles home. Her death was ruled a probable suicide. That's what they originally went with. That's what they've been going with. That's what we've now assumed for the last 50 years. But since the last 50 years have gone by, many conspiracy theories and theorists out there believe that maybe there was something more sinister in killing Marilyn Monroe. And that's what we're here for. Let's go over the proceedings here for how it all went down, supposedly. During her final months, Marilyn Monroe lived at 12305 5th Helena Drive in the Brentwood neighborhood of Los Angeles. I wonder how close that was to what would become OJ's home, because he also lived in Brentwood. Sorry, I just looked down and saw a divot in the ground and thought it was something else. I should probably edit that out. Oh, Lord. Her housekeeper, Eunice Murray, was staying overnight at the house on the evening of August 4th, 1962. Murray woke at 3 a.m. on August 5th and sensed that something was wrong. She saw light from under Monroe's bedroom door, but was unable to get a response and found the door locked. Murray then called Monroe's psychiatrist, Ralph Greason, who arrived at the home shortly after and broke into the bedroom through a window to find Monroe dead in her bed. Monroe's physician, Hyman Engelberg, arrived at around 3:50 a.m. and pronounced her dead. At 4:25 a.m., the LAPD was notified. Monroe died between 8:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. on August 4th. The toxicology reports showed that the cause of death was acute barbiturate poisoning. She had 8 milligrams per 100 millimeters of solution, chloral hydrate, and 4.5 milligrams of pentobarbital in her blood, and 13 milligrams of pentobarbital in her liver. Jesus. Empty medicine bottles were found next to her bed. The possibility that Monroe had accidentally overdosed was ruled out because the dosages found in her body were several times the legal limit. So in other words, she didn't accidentally take certain pills. Excuse me. Nothing like blowing my nose live on stream here. So basically, there's no way that she could have like accidentally taken the wrong pills or taken the wrong amount of pills, is what they're saying. It was 7 times the legal, oh no, the lethal limit. Oh man, I knew my nose was gonna start. Uh, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office was assisted in the investigation by the Los Angeles Suicide Prevention Team. I didn't know such a place existed. Who had expert knowledge on suicide. What? No shit. Monroe's doctors stated that she had been prone to severe fears and frequent depressions with abrupt and unpredictable mood changes and had overdosed several times in the past, possibly intentionally. So one thing that people will be like, oh, why would a woman like that, why would she take so many pills? And like, oh, like, well, obviously it wasn't, accidental, but like, why did she have the pills to begin with? Very simply, she was a 36-year-old actress who was probably just being beaten down by her acting roles, her image, people's opinion of her. And you factor all that in, that's the reason she took pills. That's the reason she was depressed. Maybe that goes without saying, but I just felt like I should reiterate that. Due to these facts and the lack of any indication of foul play, Deputy Coroner Thomas Noguchi classified her death as a probable suicide. Which would make sense, I mean, initially, because obviously, because of everything I just said, there's a chance that she was like, you know what, it's the depression's getting worse. I'm just going to end it. And she just takes all those pills. Monroe's sudden death was front page news in the United States and Europe. According to Lois Banner, it said that the suicide rate in Los Angeles doubled the month after she died. The circulation rate of most newspapers expanded that month, and the Chicago Tribune reported that they had received hundreds of phone calls from members of the public requesting information about her death. Can you imagine that? Suicides went up after she died. I think I hear the ice cream man. French artist Jean Cocteau commented that her death should serve as a terrible lesson to all those whose chief occupation consists of spying on and tormenting film stars. Her former co-star Laurence Olivier deemed her the complete victim of ballyhoo and sensation. Is that a 40s term? Ballyhoo? Ballyhoo. And Bus Stop director, that's one of the movies she was in, Bus Stop, Joshua Logan, said that she was one of the most unappreciated people in the world. And I think that goes without saying, because a lot of people back in the day, like, you have to remember, like, this was back in the 50s and 60s. Like, now we can easily look at Margot Robbie and Sydney Sweeney and just be like, oh, they're dumb blondes, and cast them in typical cliche roles. Back in the day, Marilyn Monroe, she was like the poster woman for, let's stick her in this film because that's what she looks like she's made for. That's very stereotypical, but it's very true, and it happens with a lot of, it's happened with a lot of actresses, just for me to name a few. So to say that she was one of the most unappreciated people in the world, I think that goes without saying. Like, absolutely, she probably was. And her popularity obviously grew after her death. I mean, I know at least 3 girls who have Marilyn Monroe tattoos, like quotes from her on their arms and over their bodies. Or if you ask a girl or a woman who her inspiration is, or who she'd like to be, still names Marilyn Monroe 50 years later. Her funeral was held at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery on August 8th and was private and attended by only her closest associates. The service was arranged by Joe DiMaggio. She was married, her second husband was Joe DiMaggio. the infamous Yankees baseball player. She was also married to James Daughtry before she was married to Joe DiMaggio. And after her marriage to DiMaggio only lasted 1 year, from 1954 to 1955, she married composer, director Arthur Miller until her death, I believe. But both DiMaggio and Miller were so in love with her. As you can see, DiMaggio. Monroe's half-sister, Bernice Baker Miracle, and Monroe's business manager, Erzen Nelson. Hundreds of spectators crowded the streets of the cemetery. In the following decades, several conspiracy theories, including murder and accidental overdose, have been introduced to contradict suicide as the cause of Monroe's death. That's why we're here. Although accidental overdose, before we go any further, let me just go on record. Accidental overdose, not on the table for me. It's not. Accidental overdose would imply one pill taken, meaning like one type of pill, and like an excess of them. She had 3 different types of pills in her system, and they were all like well over the amount that anyone should take. So there's no way in hell. Like, I mean, maybe she's really tired, but even then, like, you're not going to just go off on your dresser and just grab a handful of pills and pop them. You know what I mean? That seems very unlikely to me. So let's just rule that one out right before we go any further. The speculation that Monroe had been murdered first gained mainstream attention with the publication of Norman Mailer's Marilyn, a biography, in 1973. And in the following years became widespread enough that the Los Angeles County District Attorney John Vanderkamp to conduct a threshold investigation in 1982 to see whether a criminal investigation should be opened. No evidence of foul play was ever found. Look at that. Like, the guy wrote such an authentic book that a district attorney's like, you know what? This book's so damn good. I'm going to investigate to see if she was murdered. All right. Unfortunately, this particular article only tells about her death. It doesn't speculate the theories, but there's another page, and my God, does it have some conspiracy theories. Are we ready to go down the rabbit hole that is the conspiracy theories of behind Marilyn Monroe's death? Join me, won't you? Won't you? How did Marilyn Monroe die? All the rumors and conspiracy theories surrounding her death explained. Okay, I just told you who she was. You get the book. All right, again, we know how she died. All right, conspiracy theory number 1. Was the CIA involved in Marilyn Monroe's death? Speculation that the Central Intelligence Agency was behind Marilyn Monroe's death originated in the late 60s, drawing their tenuous support from rumors about Monroe's romantic involvement with Robert Kennedy, who was the U.S. Attorney General at the time. There were also rumors of her involvement with President John F. Kennedy, which started when he was a senator. The theory posits that the CIA arranged to have Monroe killed, either because the Kennedy brothers shared too many state secrets with her, thus making her a threat. Sorry, my computer just randomly came back on. Kennedy brothers shared too many secrets with her, thus making her a threat to national security, or because they were getting even with the Kennedys for the Bay of Pigs fiasco. This theory gained traction with Norman Mailer's 1973 biography of Monroe, in which he speculated that she was killed either by the FBI or CIA to put pressure on the Kennedys. However, Mailer publicly retracted his theory on 60 Minutes later that year, and no evidence exists to support any theory that a government agency was involved in Monroe's death. So, I would like this. I'll I'll go over all the theories and my thoughts on them afterwards, but just right away, it's juicy enough for me to like say, you know what, I could buy that. But then when you start talking about like the whole like, oh, they shared secrets with her, like again, the image and thoughts of how she was to some people, and then to say like, oh, and then to say like oh, that they shared government secrets with her, and the government wanted to silence her because she knew too much. I don't know. Like I said, we'll get into the nitty gritty afterwards. Did the mafia arrange to have Marilyn Monroe killed? So I knew about the first one. This one's all new to me. So we're both going in. We're all going in here with our eyes closed. The conspiracy theories about mafia involvement in Monroe's death derive in large part from the 1982 book titled Marilyn Monroe, Murder Cover-Up, written by Milo Spergiglio. Was he a mobster? Holy crap. A private investigator. No, really? He's a private investigator named Milo Spergiglio. Wow. Spergiglio pointed the finger at Jimmy Hoffa and mob boss Sam Giancana as Monroe's killers. Ooh, this just got really interesting to me. In 1992, Giancana's brother and godson published Double Cross, which alleged that the CIA put a contract on Monroe's life because of her involvement with Robert Kennedy, and Giancana accepted that contract. There is no evidence to support any theory of mafia involvement in Monroe's death. Okay, I will elaborate on that a little further without even looking because it's not written here, but Sam Giancana ended up as the head of the Chicago mob, and supposedly he got Kennedy elected as president. But then I believe I just based off of what I had read and what I interpreted, uh, Giancana and Kennedy, if they knew each other, they then had a kind of a distancing. Kennedy wanted to distance himself from Giancana, which put him in you know, bad sights with Giancana. And then he kind of wanted to get even with Kennedy. Not to, and there's theories out there that Giancana supposedly had Kennedy killed. So this saying that he had Marilyn Monroe killed, I could totally buy that. And I wish there was a little more on Jimmy Hoffa there because that's interesting. Was Marilyn Monroe in a relationship with John Kennedy? Rumors about Marilyn Monroe's affair with JFK have persisted for decades, largely based on her performance of Happy Birthday at the president's celebration in May 1962. So I wasn't anywhere close to being born in 62, but I've heard and seen this video. And is it suggestive? Yes. Do you get the implication that they had something going on? Yes. But also, again, I'm not trying to throw poor Marilyn Monroe's name under the bus here, but the the way that she was perceived was a dumb blonde. So I would also attribute, the whole rendition of Happy Birthday to be that. Like, why does it have to be like, oh, there's something so sultry in her voice when she sang it to the president? Like, okay, but maybe that's just who she was or who we expected her to be. Those who deny they were having a long-term affair speculate that there was a dalliance, but nothing more. What's a dalliance? I just came across a new word today, pointing to the fact that there's only one photo of them together as evidence. I mean, Bad Times at the El Royale, which is a very underrated movie in my opinion, but bombed at the box office, there is a certain plot in that movie that kind of implies their whole affair. Spoiler alert. But yeah, there's only one public known photo of them together. You don't know if there's more. Donald Spoto, who authored a 1993 biography of Monroe, writes, "No serious biographer can maintain the existence of an affair between Marilyn and the Kennedys. All we can say for sure is that the actress and the president have met 4 times between October 1961 and August 1962, and it was during one of those meetings that they called to a friendly relation of Marilyn from a bedroom. Shortly after, Marilyn confided this sexual relation to her close relatives, insisting about the fact that their affair ended there." Wait, I'm going to read that again because, yeah, all we can say for sure is that the actress and the president have met 4 times between October 1961 and August 1962. So that's almost an entire year. And it was during one of those meetings that they called to a friendly relation of Marilyn. I don't. That's how it's worded. That's why I wanted to read it again because it sounded weird to me. From a bedroom. So they had one of the meetings in a bedroom. So can you really call a friendly relation? Can you really call an encounter that happened in a bedroom as a friendly relation? I mean, you sure could, but like, can you? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Sorry, Instagram. I'm not neglecting you either. Although no one's going to watch this afterwards. If you watch this in its entirety on Instagram, do please comment me. I'd be so interested to hear your thoughts. Shortly after Marilyn concluded this sexual relation, see, now it's a sexual relation. It went from a friendly relation to a sexual relation to her close relatives, insisting about the fact that their affair ended there. So Marilyn Monroe's implying that there was an affair and it did happen in that bedroom and it ended there. Friendly relation, sexual relation are two completely different things. And yet this person that wrote this article uses both of them in the same sentence. Or in the same paragraph, mind you. The mystery of Marilyn Monroe learns into the idea that the relationship between Monroe and JFK was more than a dalliance, with some of the previously unheard tapes suggesting that their affair began long before Kennedy became president, and that they were assisted in their trysts by actor Peter Lawford, who was married to Kennedy's sister Patricia. Peter Lawford was also one of the members of the Rat Pack, with Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., and Dean Martin, and Joey Bishop. Was Marilyn Monroe in a relationship with Robert Kennedy? Again, I'm reading these because obviously it's implied that she was killed for her relationships with the Kennedys. So, the mystery of Marilyn Monroe alleges that Kennedy, who claimed Monroe's heart was not John, but his younger brother Robert, and that she was sleeping with both brothers during the same time period. I could make a really bad sexual innuendo joke here, but I'm not going to. Further, it suggests that the deep depression which led to the Monroe's overdose was prompted by Robert Kennedy ending their affair. It is kind of interesting that she died in 62, JFK died in 63, 64, and then Robert Kennedy died after those two. So they're all connected, and then they all died within like a 5-year period, which is kind of weird. Were the Kennedys involved in Marilyn's death? As with conspiracy theory about the CIA involvement in Monroe's death, the idea that either John or Robert Kennedy, or both, had ordered her death revolves around the notion that Monroe was a communist or a communist sympathizer, suspicions that began with her marriage to famed playwright Arthur Miller because of his own potential links to communism. This theory posits that Robert Kennedy had Monroe killed because she knew too many state secrets and had threatened to expose them. Alternatively, it has been suggested that Kennedy had her killed before she could reveal their affair to the public and endanger his career. The origin of this theory comes from the 1962 book The Strange Death of Marilyn Monroe by Frank A. Capel, who was a known anti-communist activist. His theories never received serious consideration. I would also suggest that he shouldn't get consideration for that. The Kennedys were like, I don't want to say goody two shoes, but like they were like very by the book. They seemed like genuinely nice men, which kind of sucks that we didn't get to see either one of them go any further in their careers. So I don't think, while they're connected, I don't think they're so connected that either Kennedy was like, you know, yeah, let's kill Marilyn. Like, no, I don't buy that for a second. That theory's also off the table, right below uh, accidental overdose. It got cut off at some point. Summers' tapes, as revealed in The Mystery of Marilyn Monroe, furthers his own theory, first put forth in his book, that while Robert Kennedy was not directly involved in Monroe's death, he was partially responsible for covering up some key details about her overdose. Summers' research had suggested that Robert Kennedy was at Monroe's house on the day she died, and that a reporter at the time claimed to have found evidence of his visit, but was encouraged by the Kennedy's people not to run the story. To be fair, most of these tapes are of people who provide second or third hand details of stories they heard from other people. Again, I don't think the Kennedys had any involvement or knowledge in her death. I think if she was killed in connection with the Kennedys, it's because she knew them and somebody was like, that's not okay. Did the FBI cover up Marilyn Monroe's death? Again, Summers tapes point. I don't know who Summers is. It's randomly threw a guy named Summers in. Summers tapes point to FBI assistance in hiding key details about the night Monroe died, based on his interview with Monroe's housekeeper, Eunice Murray. They also indicate a number of discrepancies between the official story about her death given to the press and various private accounts. The wife of Monroe's press agent, for one, and an ambulance driver called to Monroe's house, for another. Again, the tapes are of people at least once removed from individuals who were on the scene, giving their opinions without hard documentation. In other words, because it's almost like hearsay, because you're hearing it from like two or three different people who heard it from other people. So it's like, well, how credible is that? Summers also explains why only one photograph of Monroe and the Kennedys exists. Men claiming to be the FBI seized other photos from at least one agency after Monroe's death. There is also an interview with a former FBI agent who claims to have been aware that records of the affairs between Monroe and the Kennedys were removed by the FBI, either acting from the orders of the then director J. Edgar Hoover or one of the Kennedys. So again, Bad Times at the El Royale implies this very notion. Did Marilyn Monroe's doctors cover up her death? Summers' tapes played during the Mystery of Marilyn Monroe also suggest that Dr. Greenson, the, the psychiatrist treating Monroe for depression, played a part in creating the public version of the story of her death, given to the press. Once more, the primary accounts are at second hand, at least 2 years after Monroe's death, and Greason's surviving family members are clearly guarded in their responses to Summers' questioning. On one tape, Greason's widow indicates that her husband kept some details of the night of Monroe's death from his family, so as not to burden them. What burden he meant is left unsaid. So, in other words, even years later, like after the doctor died, the family was even questioned about Monroe's death. And they were like, we have nothing to tell you because he didn't even tell us. So, and that concludes the theories. All right. Let's lay them all out there, shall we? Theory number 1, accidental overdose. We already know it didn't happen. Sorry, it didn't. Theory number 2, the Kennedys plotted to have Marilyn Monroe killed. Also, don't believe it. I don't even think they knew. I'd like to know how they felt and what was their reaction when they found out that she had died. If that would be at the very least, I would want to know how they reacted before I could even possibly consider that as being a possibility. Theory number 3, the CIA was involved. And again, maybe, but not for. I think the CIA could be involved, but not for the reasons, not because they knew they had government secrets that she got from the president. Maybe they thought she had secrets that she got from the president, and the CIA was like, "We think she knows too much. We're gonna end her life." Theory number 4, the mafia and Sam Giancana got the contract and had her killed. I can dig that one. I'm becoming a bit of a mafia buff, so I can kind of dig that one. Also, Sam Giancana, like I said, one point he backed Kennedy and then sort of kind of took a step back, maybe because Kennedy insulted him because of his connection with the mob, and maybe for retaliation he's like, "Oh, I'm going to go after your girl." There's also I think Sam Giancana also knows somebody that Marilyn Monroe knows. There's a connection there. So I would absolutely, I'd 80% consider that one. Theory number 5, the FBI. Again, I'll say the FBI is as possible as the CIA, but not for the same reason. For the same reason. Not because because the Kennedys told her or because she knew too much. Maybe they assumed she knew too much. And her doctor, her psychiatrist, did he have something to do with her death? Maybe. That one to me is because he's her psychiatrist, which is kind of ironic because I think psychologically, if you think about it long enough, you could probably convince yourself there's a strong possibility, she was depressed and the doctor was married. But I mean, again, not to throw a smoking gun 50 years later into the possibility here, but maybe he had quite a fondness for Marilyn Monroe, and he was trying to help her with her depression. But that would explain why she had 3 different types of pills, And also, he was the first person that was called by the maid, Eunice Murray, which is kind of interesting. The cops were the second people that came. She called the psychiatrist first. To me, that's interesting. Maybe he'd been around before, earlier in the day. Or maybe it's just as simple as she has 3 different pills and he prescribed them. But still, interesting. So, in order, I think, what do I think? Suicide, of course, is the number 1. That's what we know. For the last 50 years, we think she killed herself. You can't rule that one out. That's the one that was given. Fine. 2, I think the mob. 3, CIA/FBI. 4 being the Kennedys had something to do with it. And then 5 being that the CIA/FBI had something, they thought something. I don't know. That's what I think. What do you think? Do tell me in comments. You never do, but maybe one day you'll surprise me. And do stay tuned for next week's episode. I don't remember what it's on, but that's typical unprofessionalism by me. I do hope you enjoyed the Season 9 debut of Mystery Unsolved, and once again, the mysterious death of Marilyn Monroe. That's all for tonight. Until next time.